Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the launch of new global partnership on ecological connectivity. Connectivity is the spirit of migration. With their amazing journeys, migratory animals connect sites, habitats, countries, and continents, and they do not recognize borders, the only limit for them being the planet. Ecological connectivity is a key factor for migratory species to try and respond to the fast changes caused by climate change. Migratory systems are a mosaic of stages in time and space along the annual cycle, where components of the migratory journey have to take place, like breeding or building of energy reserves for extended movements, staging and resting after endurance physical efforts. Only if all such components of the mosaic which make a migratory cycle are available and functional can successful migration take place. Countries along such migratory systems have each a specific and key importance to offer a full and functional mosaic to migratory animals. This is the reason for a key and urgent need for cooperation across all countries along a migratory system and across all MEAs working for nature conservation at the global scale. CMS has been very active in steering attention on ecological connectivity, but several other MEAs are also fully aware and very active on this aspect. That's why we are enthusiastic and thrilled by the launch of a new global partnership on ecological connectivity. It is therefore my pleasure to ask the CMS Executive Secretary, Mrs. Amy Frankel, to take the floor and introduce the perspectives from CMS and partners on this new adventure for global conservation. And before passing to Amy, I will just explain that there will be a series of interventions by representatives of different globally important initiatives and MEAs involved with connectivity, and this network will be based on a multi-stakeholder approach, and I'm sure you will hear more about, and then we will have room for questions from the floor. Amy, it's my pleasure to invite you to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando, and I'm standing because I'm so excited about this. I think I have to move my hands, and some of Fernando's Italian culture has rubbed off on me. So, just briefly, this is an incredible event. It's probably the happiest event for me at this COP in some ways because it is the culmination of an amazing partnership that really grew organically among people that saw the importance of this issue and just found each other and said, we have to move it forward. The first time I learned about this was when I joined the CMS Secretariat. My third day on the job, I learned that I had to co-chair a meeting of the CMS Working Group on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. And one of the most important issues that I learned about was connectivity. And Fernando is our scientific counselor on connectivity. So I read his papers, I learned, and I realized this is one of the most important concepts that we have to bring forward, not only in biodiversity, but for climate change, for desertification issues, for people, for landscapes. It's essentially, for migratory species, they need particular habitats, they need to also get to them. And so connectivity is about identifying those places of importance for migratory species, but also addressing the threats and the boundaries that are being the impediments to their achieving those or reaching those. And there's been a lot of experience in Central Asia, as I'm sure we've heard already, and fences, for example, can interrupt the saiga that need to move. So this has come together. The first major accomplishment I would say that we had was getting connectivity all over the global biodiversity framework. That's what we were working on. It wasn't just the people here, it was the CMS parties, it was the CMS partners, but this group of people from their different areas of work and expertise and organizations were all leading in their world. So this partnership, if we can quickly go to the slides, I'll just explain the vision of this, is to continue this coordination and leveraging that we've come together. As I said, it's collaboration. we realize that even though we've got it now in the global biodiversity framework, we cannot stop there. We know there's a lot of work to be done, and if you recall, under the former Aichi targets that were adopted under CBD, this is not a new concept. I want to make that clear. And there are people here at the table who've been working on this for a very long time. But we didn't achieve it in the Aichi targets. Aichi Target 11 talked about well-connected, protected areas and other effective management, conservation measures. And the IPBES report, the global assessment, said that was not achieved. So very similar language is in Target 3 of the GBF, among other places, the 30 by 30 target. But what are we going to do to make sure that that gets implemented on the ground? That's why we have this new partnership. The State of the World's Migratory Species report that we launched on Monday shows that habitat destruction, fragmentation, and degradation are one of the leading causes or threats to migratory species and towards extinction. So this is critically important for CMS as well as to other global priorities. But we need to make sure we bring and leverage the work that is needed, fill the gaps, and try to get money to countries that really are trying to implement these ideas. So these are the 4 areas that we've sketched out where the partnership will work. The first is on data, research, monitoring. We learned from the report launched Monday that there are a lot of sites of importance to migratory species. We don't know where they are. That's absolutely unacceptable. We have a mandate at CMS to map, identify where are those sites. If we don't know that a site is of importance to a migratory species, then investments in infrastructure won't be able to bring it into their assessments, their impact assessments. The World Bank can't actually adhere to its own safeguard standards. So we need to make sure we identify which sites are important. We also need to look at legislation and policy to see if national laws or legislation need to be adjusted at all to make sure that they take this into account. Some of this is about upstream planning in government, spatial planning, so we can look at what are the areas or corridors or networks needed for species and nature, and where can we put infrastructure in a way so we can actually have both objectives met. The third is the real nitty-gritty uptake and implementation. We have experts, including some on this panel, that know how to do the technical work about how do you do conservation, which is connectivity conservation. And finally, awareness raising, outreach, bringing this message to other forums. This is sort of our center ground, our happy place, but we need to keep bringing this message into other forums. There was, because of Central Asia, by the way, they brought, Kyrgyzstan led, but all of the Central Asian countries got behind a resolution adopted by the UN General Assembly on the topic of transboundary cooperation, which includes connectivity. So this region is also no stranger to this concept. I'm very honored that the government of Uzbekistan has committed to this partnership and it was recognized as a champion for that. I also want to recognize the other donors that have already said they'll support this, which include the governments of Belgium, France, and Monaco. And just, if you look at the flyer, I'll just mention a couple of the key partners. We have the core here on the stage, you'll see. We've also added, well, let me say who they are. Us, of course, Convention on Migratory Species Secretariat, the Center for Large Landscape Conservation, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, just looking through, the World Wildlife Fund, and the UN Environment Program World Conservation Monitoring Center. We also have expressions now of strong commitment as additional partners from the CBD Secretariat, from the Ramsar Secretariat, from the UNCCD Secretariat, ICLE and Climat Chance, which has been at the table on this also in a very interesting and different context, has also brought it from the climate angle. So we're very, very pleased to have the Senator Santek here with us today. So this is what I want to show you. We've come together. We're launching it today, and if you're interested, you can get a button, and you can join this incredible, exciting work that I truly believe is going to be a legacy for this planet. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Amy, for your words. And we now are with Mrs. Madhur Rao, who is chair of the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas, WCPA. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you very much. I'm very honored to make this intervention on behalf of IUCN's World Commission on Protected Areas, as well as on behalf of the Director General of the IUCN, Dr. Gretel Aguilar. So I think we've already heard that there is broad consensus, policy consensus, on the need for ambitious and urgent action to reverse biodiversity declines, as well as to build resilience to the impacts of climate change. Within this context, ecological connectivity is explicitly recognized as a priority for biodiversity conservation, for habitat restoration, for climate change adaptation and mitigation. So the urgent need to achieve conservation at scale has never been more important than it is at the current moment. We have less than 6 years to show success with the GBF targets and are under enormous pressure to increase ambition for climate action. So conservation at scale involves improving ecological integrity through ecological corridors, protecting large-scale ecological networks. Significant action is needed to translate global commitments to action on the ground. We need to move from dialogue to action. We want to enhance local ambitions for ecological connectivity. While there are numerous efforts already taking place, there is an urgent need for alignment. Alignment in goals, alignment in implementation. We want to fill important gaps in data and technical knowledge. So the Global Partnership on Ecological Connectivity is timely and important. It will facilitate cooperation not just across political borders, but across MEAs and implementing organizations across the globe. IUCN recognizes the potential of this partnership to catalyze and accelerate implementation of connectivity conservation, improving efficiencies and influencing global action on connectivity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your very positive words. And we are now with Gary Tabor. Gary, he is a Chief Executive Officer at the Center for Large Landscape Conservation and Chair of the IUCN Connectivity Conservation Specialist Group. Gary, you have the floor.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Amy. Yep. Okay, so I'm here to talk a little bit about the different facets of connectivity. Connectivity is important because we live in a dynamic world. And one of the issues, and I'm on the X Prize team for looking at next big ideas for conservation, is that we don't see the dynamic aspects of the planet. We have no real-time approach. There's a lot of fragmentation of data. We really can't see the problem to the point where we can find solutions. If you just look at the green up of the planet, you just get a sense that we have a living planet where all life is on the move. All life is on the move. And the reason why the conventional migratory species is so important is because this convention deals with the dynamic aspects of nature like no other convention does. We live in a time of unprecedented fragmentation, exacerbated by pollution, climate change, and others. Why we need this kind of dynamic understanding of the planet is because we're not getting on top of the cumulative impacts to the biosphere. For the past decade or so, the Connectivity Conservation Specialist Group has been trying to educate the world on why connectivity is important and why it is the safety net for nature, inside and outside of protected areas. And what is connectivity? And thanks to CMS for creating the global definition, it is the unimpaired movement of species and the flow of nature that sustains life on Earth. It is the dynamic ecology for conserving the biosphere. And in that time, we've seen growing importance and prominence of connectivity in all the MEAs across many policy platforms amongst many nations. It is now becoming recognized as an important key mainstream issue of conservation. And it's not only on terrestrial areas, it's fresh water. The aquatic people will tell you how free-flowing rivers are becoming rarer. How the marine environment in itself is a three-dimensional connective environment. The marine environment is a connective environment. And then if you look, and for all the people who work on flyways, oops, I think I have, can I go back? No, it won't work. Nope. So for all the people who look on flyways, we know that the aerial movement of all the birds on the planet essentially been the leader of connectivity conservation. And that's now informed by this growth of big data with 6 billion different individual data points in MoveBank, one of our partners. So as we achieve or approach the 30 by 30 goals and we create expanded and new protected areas, we have one problem, as on the left side of this slide, is that they're not connected. We envision a world where we have connection between realms, from land and sea, across all environments, that's striving for ecological corridors and ecological networks. Because connectivity also accounts for the resilient strategy of nature. It is how are we going to respond to the changing conditions that all life is responding to and have that conservation strategy. And the other aspect of connectivity that's often ignored, it's that key to restoration. And here with the Great Green Wall of Africa, we're not only stopping the desert, we're cutting the distance so that species that migrate across the large deserts can make it to home. And that's a tribute to Dr. Spina's work, his lifetime work. So in the end, as we come together for connectivity, we have to come together as people, as nations, as cultures, because we're going to stop this fragmentation and save the planet as if we work together, and hence the global partnership on ecological connectivity. Thank you.
Gary, thanks very much indeed. This was extremely stimulating, and it's now my pleasure to give the floor to Dr. Rafael Antelo. He is the leader of the Wildlife Connect initiative and PACHA coordinator at WWF. Please.
Thank you, Fernando, for the introduction. Thank you, Amy, for the invitation, and thank you to the public for attending. We at WWF, we are convinced that ecological connectivity is a key aspect for preserving the biodiversity in this world, and as Gary has explained better than anybody, why is that important. So that's why 2 years ago we released this initiative called Wildlife Connect. We are not alone. We have some of the folks with us today here. The Center for Large Landscape Conservation, the Connectivity Conservation Specialist Group, and recently the Convention on Migratory Species joined to us. We, as Amy was saying, are committed to deliver connectivity impact on the ground. We are a global initiative, but we have identified 4 demonstrative landscapes to operate. One of them, it's in the Carpathians. It's a transboundary landscape. 7 countries form this landscape. Another one is the Central India one, focused on the tiger connectivity. In Africa, we work in another transboundary landscape, Sognot, south of Kenya, north of Tanzania. And where I'm from, where I'm coming from, is the Pacha landscape, Pantanal and Chaco, another transboundary landscape, Bolivia, Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil. And 2 weeks ago, I was working with the Guaranis communities, an indigenous community that lives in the border between Pantanal and between Bolivia and Paraguay. And we were identifying a place to build a laboratory where a group of women are going to transform non-timber forest products from a forest that we have identified with a group of experts that it's important for jaguar connectivity. So that's what I love of my job, because one day I'm in the field working in the details with the communities, and 2 weeks later I'm here with these old VIP people. And I think this is a very good example of how to move from policy to action in the field. So we are delighted to be part of this initiative, this partnership. Thank you, Amy, for the invitation, and I hope we can have great achievements together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Rafael, and congratulations for your activities. We now have really the pleasure of having Senator Ronan Dantec with us, who is president of Climate Change Association. Please, you have the floor.
It's me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
It is.
Great.
Okay. Thank you. Joy and energy, said Amy. It's a great pleasure to be here. Just a few words to present climate change. In the galaxy of NGOs, the particularity of climate change, it is that we do nothing. We do concretely nothing on the field. Our role, our job, is to mobilize, to aggregate all the non-state actors together. It was our action in climate change first, but now in biodiversity too, and to cross biodiversity and climate change issue. This international coalition for corridors in Africa has some targets. Of course, you know the first targets, but I underline more the importance of benefits, of co-benefits for local population. It's impossible to have connectivity, to have corridor, if you have not development for local people. It's absolutely key. And it's very important too, and with our experience in the climate change negotiations, is to do the link with the new innovative finance of climate change, maybe a part of the finance for conservation. Tomorrow will be in link with the mobilization for climate change. What we do first, as I said, we connect all the non-state actors. We want to develop common advocacy for ecological connectivity and development, and to share information with a portal about, with a mapping of factor, mapping of territory at stake, and report about the evolution of action and the impact of action in link with development. Co-president for this coalition, Gabon, Guinea, Tanzania, and France. The Secretariat, of course, coordinated by climate change, and a lot of members, and it's open for all the people who want. I think I have always 1 minute. I think that the future of our common goals, it's absolutely, as Amy said, collaboration and collective action. We know that a little bit, everybody has his own action, his own targets. If we want to have a global impact, we have to collaborate together, and it is the proposal of climate change. Thank you.
Senator Ronan, thanks very much for your intervention. The example that you have offered is just clearly referred to the potential we have here now to work together to maximize our efforts and optimize our efforts. And we are now with Mrs. Ingrid Coetzee. She's Director of Biodiversity, Nature and Health at Ecological Africa and Global Cities Biodiversity Center. Ingrid, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of the ICLEI Secretary General, Gino van Begin, I'm really very honored and excited to make this intervention. In fact, Amy was saying this has been a dream that has been coming on for some time. And ICLEI has been part of this. We are a network of 3,500 plus cities and regions globally, and we really understand that it's all about connections, but it's also about passion and a shared vision. And this partnership is precisely around that. So I think that if we look at cities and regions and connectivity and migratory species, there are so many reasons why cities should become involved. ICLEI has, over the decade, advocated and mobilized cities to become involved in the CBD space. They have, for example, in the GBF that was approved in Montreal in 2022, there's Target 12, which speaks directly to urban open spaces, green and blue, and the issue of connectivity, but also other targets that are in the GBF where cities can make an impact. And if we look at why cities or how cities could support specifically the objectives of the CMS, there's things that range from habitat conservation. It's the decisions and the plans and the legislation that cities and regions make, mainstreaming migratory species into decision-making and policies around infrastructure, green infrastructure, awareness raising, education, collaboration and partnerships. We already have partnerships, for example, with many of the organizations here on the table, WWF, IUCN, but I think importantly also to scale out conservation measures at the local levels. So for us, this partnership really represents a dream come true. We've been working with CMS for some time now around awareness raising, and really it's about joining forces for in this global partnership that paves the way for a more sustainable future for people and planet, so that we can strengthen local action for migratory species and open doors for collaboration in support of the objectives of this convention. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Ingrid. And this is another further perspective to the potential of this cooperation, and there is, of course, growing interest and research on what happens in urban and suburban habitats and areas in terms of biodiversity, and there is the immense potential also of citizen science. I'm now really pleased to invite to the podium Mrs. Frances Davies. She's Senior Program Officer at UNEP WCMC. Frances, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Fernando, and I'm very excited to be here today to take part in this launch. UNEP WCMC welcomes this very important partnership as a way to increase cooperation and to translate the science into action on ecological connectivity. As Amy already mentioned, highlighted in the State of the World's Migratory Species report, many migratory species are in decline, with habitat loss and fragmentation a key driver of this loss. To reverse these trends and conserve these species, we must protect and enhance connectivity so they can move freely along their migration routes. At UNEP WCMC, connectivity conservation is one of our strategic priorities, and we recognize the need for ecological connectivity to effectively conserve the world's biodiversity. And connectivity is not just crucial for migratory species, but also for achieving the wider biodiversity, nature, and climate goals. As the COP motto says, nature knows no borders, and for that reason, efforts to ensure connectivity rely upon cooperation. And for that reason, we very much welcome the establishment of a new partnership. And thank you very much for the invitation to join, and we're very much looking forward to supporting and engaging in its work. Thank you.
Thank you, Frances, for your very positive words. Of course, an entity like WCMC is of key importance given the potential you have in terms of databases and information and data at the global level on so many different aspects. So this was, I think, a very interesting opening part of our event, and we now have the possibility of hearing perspectives from party partners. And we are really lucky and honored to have His Excellency Mr. Aziz Abdukakimov with us, Minister of Ecology, Environmental Protection and Climate Change of Uzbekistan. And yeah, His Excellency, you have the floor. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Ecological connectivity is a now global conservation priority. Therefore, I am glad that a new global partnership on ecological connectivity is being launched at this CMS COP14 in Samarkand, since this new program marks a critical moment in our collaborative work to protect migratory species and their habitats. Moreover, Uzbekistan is pleased to be a key contributor to this new partnership and to be offering the long-term commitment that is integral to its success. The establishment of this new global partnership marks an important moment in our collective efforts. This partnership provides a platform for collaboration among diverse stakeholders, facilitating the development and implementation of strategies to maintain, enhance, and restore ecological connectivity worldwide. Ecological connectivity fits into transboundary nexus of environmental, economic, and social priorities. In Uzbekistan, we already feel the resonating effects of the breakdown of ecological connectivity. It affects all scales of activity, including infrastructure, energy, agriculture, and health. Therefore, Uzbekistan has taken important conservation steps to protect migratory species within the country, including expanding protected areas by 10% in the last 6 years. Uzbekistan also proactively works at the regional level. Central Asia has a uniquely strong regional approach to conservation, as demonstrated by transboundary cooperation in West Tian Shan for snow leopard conservation. However, for many of Uzbekistan's iconic and unique species, national and regional work is not enough. These migratory species travel not only across national borders, but also across regional borders. Therefore, Uzbekistan seeks to extend greater cooperation to global initiatives, providing more approach to protecting migratory species. We are glad to be a partner committed to the long-term implementation of this global connectivity program. I wish to end by reaffirming the government of Uzbekistan's commitment to global cooperation in our conservation efforts. We congratulate the CMS Secretariat on this new partnership. Your ongoing dedication is crucial in driving forward concrete results in protecting our migratory species and their global habitats. Thank you, and Katar Rahmat.
Thank you. Thanks very much indeed. And all our warmest thanks to Minister Abdul Kakimov for his extremely positive words. I think we are all excited having had the opportunity to visit Uzbekistan, and the examples that the Minister has been mentioning are really extremely important. Okay, now we have room for your interventions from the floor. With possible statements, and I would like to start asking for intervention from interested entities. We will then move to the possibility for representatives of the press to put up their questions, and more generally from the floor. So the floor is open for comments or questions on this initiative and the contributions that have been offered so far. Anyone wishing? Yes, please. Please introduce yourself. You have the floor.
Amr-Mande. My name is Maria Zhunova. I'm with the Land of Snow Leopard Network. And my question is, well, what does this initiative entails for the indigenous communities, especially nomadic pastoralists? My concern is the misplacement of traditional indigenous communities who share the landscape with those wonderful animals, and especially how does it affect the access to traditional territories, especially sacred sites, sacred natural sites, and sacred waters. Thank you.
Yeah. Gary, you want? Yeah.
Yeah, well, first of all, many traditional communities have first foods that migrate, and they care very deeply about this issue. In fact, this is where I come from in Montana. The Bison Treaty is pretty famous for bringing, I don't know, 46 tribes together to kind of reestablish the migration of the bison. And I feel this is an issue, having worked in India with tigers and tribal communities there. The path of the tiger and diminishing human conflict has really been a key part of success in central India, working with indigenous communities there. I feel this is part of the design of the process, is working with indigenous communities. And I always tell people that when you look at the first art that's ever, touched us as a species, no matter where we are, it was always the migratory species. So even to our heart, migratory species are part of us. And so it extends and it connects us to indigenous communities all over the planet.
Gary, thanks very much for your words. I do fully second this, and I always thought that indigenous knowledge is key for the understanding of what has happened to nature, because there you have roots and knowledge of when animals were really free to roam differently, unfortunately, from nowadays. Any other? Yes? Nina Mikander? Yeah, Nina, you have the floor.
Thanks, Fernando. Yeah, my name is Nina Mikander. I'm the Global Director of Policy at BirdLife International. Thanks for the event, and obviously to everyone involved for launching this very important partnership. As stewards of the global flyways, as we like to call ourselves, we are in consultation with the CMS Secretariat on joining. So thanks to everyone, and yeah, let's work together. Thank you.
Yes, definitely, absolutely room for cooperation and as wide as possible, and we need, of course, entities like BirdLife International with a unique baseline of knowledge. I see more hands raised. Sorry, you have the floor. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to the partners. I'm Musonda Mumba, the Secretary General of the Convention on Wetlands, and as we are the oldest MEA, and also one with assets, Ramsar sites, or wetlands of international importance, the element of connectivity is absolutely important. And thank you, Nina, for your point on the flyways. We've seen a lot of presentations, and the art exhibition that we went to yesterday, which was fantastic, Minister, really showing and demonstrating the importance of connectivity. I just want to echo the point from the young lady there regarding the issue of indigenous peoples. A number of our Ramsar sites are in custodianship of indigenous peoples. And I think we need to recognize this in the element of ecological connectivity. Thank you so much, and we're looking forward as we're a partner in this initiative.
Thanks very much indeed to Ramsar, and exactly, I mean, wetlands are the exactly the example of the absolute need for connectivity. There was another, yes, please, could you introduce yourself? I think Kenya.
My name is Patrick Omondi. I'm the director of the Wildlife Research and Training Institute in Kenya that coordinates research and monitoring to inform policy and management. I want to congratulate the initiators of this initiative, and I'm particularly keen on data research and monitoring, informing where corridors and connections are. We have done monitoring of long-ranging species like elephants, identified these corridors. For example, we recently mapped out a new connection between Kidepo National Park in Uganda, crossing the border, elephants crossing the border through to Kenya to Sudan, not known to conservation. But the big challenge is how do we secure the connections, these corridors, after we map them? I see there's an element of implementation and policy. And the point I want at the entry, joining the initiative and partnership should be at policy level. Because if you want to secure these corridors and you want to secure connectivity, it will not be done at the technical science level. Our role ends at mapping. So I don't know when we say we can sign in to the partnership, at what level are we signing in? My recommendation, it should be at a high political level, just like we ratify treaties. If we ratify this at a higher political level, then we'll be able to secure the connections and the corridors to secure the migratory species. I thank you.
Thanks very much for this extremely important intervention. I personally think that we are here to join forces, join data, different typologies of data, but based on that, to offer the soundest possible scientific baseline to then connect policies. Otherwise, this will not work. But let me pass the floor to Amy.
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Patrick, and I also want to thank Nina and Musonda for your comments. And first, let me say that the way that we've constructed this is that we have a concept note for the partnership. It's something that we can continue to refine. Our plan is we're launching it today, and then following this, there's a first phase of the partnership where we're looking at, first of all, finalizing the organizational model, what kind of governance structure, what kind of, how we play a role, have a role for different other entities that are interested, and also looking at sort of the foundational kinds of activities we need to define the next steps and priorities. So we want to, for example, I imagine finding a way to identify priorities at the national level in terms of countries that already want to do something on this, sort of as more of a low-hanging fruit. Look at the data gaps. Look at who is interested in owning a piece of what we need done, because that's the idea of the partnership. It's collaboration. It's not meant to go through a central funnel, if you will, but to try to coordinate a lot of different efforts on this work. So identifying the gaps and then trying to find partners that are interested to help deliver, as well as to try to develop longer-term funding from different sources that might be interested in this kind of work, such as the GEF or the GCF or others. But in terms of, Patrick, your question, I think it's a very good point. And I can also think of many high-level political initiatives like this that I've seen launched, for example, from the U.S. State Department, showing up at a very high level, or even, higher than that, head of state. The royal family, I know, very interested in wildlife, so either British royal family. So there's a lot we can do on that front, and I think it's a very good comment. So thanks.
Thank you, Amy, very much. Time is running very fast. We have the last two interventions. One is from Ian Redmond from Born Free, and then we have Spike. Ian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Amy has covered some of what I was going to ask. It's a very impressive collection of partners, a partnership of partnerships. And those of us fortunate enough to be in the room are hearing what you're saying. So my question really, and Amy partly answered it, how will you reach out to the potential partners not in the room, and what is the mechanism for them to engage? I'm part of an ecosystem restoration alliance, which is essentially landowners who are just getting on with it, not waiting for the high-level stuff, doing it on the ground level. So whilst at the same time we need the high-level buy-in, there are people out there just getting on and restoring ecosystems, and I'd love them to be part of this, but what is the mechanism?
Thanks, Ian, very much. And I think, as I said, now we've gotten to this point. We kind of brought together people that have been at the table with each other for many years now, in fact, and picked up some partners along the way, if you will, and it's sort of grown, as I said, a bit organically. Now we come to the launch, and following this, really, it is the first step to think about things like that, to do it more methodically, let's say, like how do we put the word out? It'll be on our website, but this is the first way is the outreach to let people know about this, and certainly we'll have more information about who to contact if interested, all of this stuff. But in terms of the different roles, that's part of what we sketch out, is there's a political level role, there's a role for parties who want to support this, there's also a role at the technical level, absolutely, it's more on the implementation side. So we're really trying to envisage the kinds of different work streams that can come to bear, and I'd love to talk to you about it, so thanks.
Thanks, Amy. The last intervention is from Spike Millington from International Crane Foundation. Spike, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Fernando. Yes, I work with global flyways particularly, and these long-distance migratory birds face particular challenges, I think, for the connectivity. They use stepping stone approaches across many thousands of kilometers. But I think the point that I really wanted to make is that really when we talk about the sustainability of ecological connectivity, it's really underlined by other aspects of activity, notably social connectivity, linking people between sites, whether that's site managers or local governments, and also institutional connectivity is very important because up until now, efforts have been very fragmented. So I'm really hoping that this initiative can actually address that fundamental issue of institutional connectivity, which will actually, I think, enhance the sustainability of ecological connectivity across large and small regions. So I'm very happy in that sense to see this partnership start to address that very important aspect. Thank you.
Spike, thanks very much for your very positive words. Yes, indeed. I do think that we are really challenged with trying to solve very difficult problems at the interface between science and policy and offering scientific background to political decisions. But in terms of outreach, awareness, especially during these days, which are not easy for many different reasons, I think this concept of connectivity and as mediated by migratory animals is a very, very powerful message, positive message, hopefully that we can circulate. Yes, Amy, yeah. Oh, okay. So we are now at the close of this event, but before closing, I will leave the floor to Amy. Yeah.
So we won't be signing anything today, but I would like to invite up to the stage Musonda, Gabrielle, anyone who wants to come who's with a partner, and we're going to do a little photo shot with a special connectivity demonstration. Just in front of your chairs, I think. It's in front of your chair. We're just going to do something now. Okay. So, oh yeah, good idea. Let's go in the front. This minister is